So in this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to set up footstep effects using iStep. In the demo scene that I have open, everything has been already set up, like these decals that you see here, or the audio effects and the smoke. But for your character, you may want to set up your own effects, and you may have different character, or you will have a different character with different properties where these settings may not work. So the first thing you have to know is that if we scroll down to the FootIK script and we check out this effect, these events here, we have the on footstep left start and the on footstep right start event. And I don't know if you know how these events work in Unity. If you don't, I recommend you check the documentation. And for a fast explanation, the effects that are distributed here do have a parameter that would be distributed to the function if you have this parameter, and it gives you the IK result. So what is an IK result? It's basically this here, it's this class here, and it has some parameters, and the parameters that are important for us, for example, if you want to spawn a decal, which we are going to do in this tutorial, are these two. These are the two important parameters. So we want to know where is the surface point. That's the point really on the ground, and we want to know the normal of the ground. These two are super important for us. So if you want to write your own function where you call not the play function from the FX player here in the dynamic, but your own dynamic function that you have in your own script, you probably will need these two parameters. This will be important for you to spawn your own effects with your own code if you want to do that. So the other option, which we are going to do in the tutorial here, is to set it up using the effects player. But before we go to that, I'm just going to explain these three parameters in addition. I mean, they are almost self-explanatory, but not. It's still difficult. Everything with the footstep it's not so easy to understand. So I personally recommend that you configure these three parameters so that you are happy, and then you configure everything else. So the best you can do is actually to play a sound, or the easiest you can do is to play a sound to get this and this right. You would hear the sound when it's being played, and also to set up the event delay. This is a new parameter that I added in the newest 1.3.5 version, which delays the event when it's being executed. The reason why you need that is because the events are always thrown faster than they are actually happen visually. This is why you always need a delay. In this case, it's 0 because the FX player has its own delay on top, and this parameter, the footstep event delay parameter, was just recently added. So you can use it to optimize it with this parameter, to optimize the events with this parameter, and then in your own scripts, if you use your own scripts here, you don't have to implement some delay functionality. But because this parameter didn't exist in the beginning, the FX player that is configured here has its own delay, which is here delay and here, if you look at that. And yeah, actually I could set this to 0 and set this to 0.18, but for now we let it like it's already configured. So let's have a look at the FX player that we used here. This is this one. So this FX player has multiple options where you can define objects to be spawned or to be played like an audio clip. And what we use here is just a play instance event, a simple event where a game object will be instantiated, which is the footstep left decal here. And if you look at this UI interface, it looks very complicated. And I'm not going to explain everything from here, because these settings you can just reuse, except these parameters here, like the rotation and the position and the delay. I think I already explained that you have to set up the delay as well, but these parameters here will be important to set up. And we are going to reconfigure this so that you know and understand what steps you have to follow to find the correct parameters for your own custom prefabs. So let's continue, because that's now the important stuff of this tutorial, the important part. I'm just going to put the layers somewhere here, and in the skeleton, if we, for example, want to set up the left foot decal, then what we have to do is we have to create an empty game object. That's the game object. And you have to know that, well, it's easier if I show it in the code. If you go to the effects player, and you saw it, I think, sorry for moving back and forth, you saw it here that we had for the left footstep effect, we had the left foot result as a target, and the left foot result, it's this case here. And if we look at this code, what's very important is the rotation. And the rotation, these lines of code here will do the following. They will look in the direction of the normal, and the upwards vector will be the forward vector of our left foot in this case. So what does this mean? So our game object is going to look at the same direction as the normal. So this means that the upward vector, the forward vector, this vector, this is the forward vector. In the look at, the forward vector always looks in the direction. And because we said here, the direction we are going to look at is the normal, we have to set this game object that we parented in our left foot to look in the same direction, in this up direction of the surface, which is this direction here. I hope you understand that. It's difficult to understand, but we are just looking at the surface normal, and the surface normal is pointing up. If you look at the ground, the normal is pointing up. So we set this like that to point up. Then the next thing is in this code that the upwards vector, this is the green vector, the up vector in Unity, is pointing towards the forward vector of the left foot transform. This is the left foot transform, and the forward vector of this transform is here. It's pointing back. It's basically pointing back. So this game object, the up vector, this vector here, has to point back. It does already point back. So if this would be like that, this would be wrong, because it has to point back. So the up vector, the green vector here, has to be the same, has to look at the same direction as the forward vector of your left foot. Alright, I know, very difficult, but that's the result. So this is your game object that you are going to have. So if you have this game object, now you can drag and drop whatever you want, like for example the left foot decal. I just drag and drop it on the game object, and now it's oriented wrong, obviously. So what we do is we just correct it. So this decal projector projects, like you see here, in the direction of the forward vector. So this is now basically correctly placed, except that we should always add some offset here in Z, you see, from this, so that we have some flash to project it on a little bit more, let's say, I don't know, something like that, for example. I don't know how it was set up before. It could be that I put it even more down like this. I don't know. It's not going to change much. You can have it like that also, you know. You already see it, by the way, on the bottom. You see that it's projecting it correct. And what you can do now, this is the easiest way to do it. All right, the easiest way would be to take this object. I'm going to rename it. So we need to take this object, this game object that we created previously and that we orientated previously. So let's rename it to left decal, and I'm going to create a prefab out of that. And this prefab is now different than what this prefab used to be. So we created this. I'm going to just disable it for now in case we want to make some changes, and afterwards I'm going to delete it. But now let's go here to the left, the footstep left effects, and here we can drag and drop one and replace the old prefab. And because of this workflow that we just choose, we can set this to 0 and this to 0 and this to 0. Sorry, I have to correct something. This one is a little bit too low. We have to put it somewhere here because it was so low that it wasn't able to project right. So let's fix that, and I'm going to apply that, and now it should work. So I had to pause the video before just to fix this because it wasn't working, but now it should work. And you see the left foot behaves the same as it behaved before, and we have the decals for both legs. So this is working. That's the easiest way to do it. There's another way to do it. I don't know if I should even show you because it will overcomplicate things probably, but I mean, we can try. So this left, the real left decal, the previous one, this one that we had before, that was used here. If you look at the parameters here that we rotated and we moved, it was 118 in Y. So technically this and this and this and this are the values. If you don't want to use the parent, are the values that you would need to use here, here and here, here, here and here, for the same result, which means I can drag and drop the old decal, which is this one, and for this one to work, these are just the parameters. So we just have to copy them. I forgot them. 180 in Y, and this minus whatever here. Let's copy that as well. 180 in Y, and this one. So if I copy that here, then if I press play, I should have the same result as before. And you see it works. And it works even though the previous values here were different values. So if we restart this scene and look at the default values, and I will explain, or maybe I explain the reason before we check the default values. So if we look at that, I rotated it in Y180, but that's not really necessary 100%. There's another way to do it. We can also rotate 180 in X and 180 in Z, in Z, and it's basically the same. This is basically the same as saying 0, 0, 180. And that's how rotations work. So that's how this is. So there are multiple values that will, or that would work, that you can use in here. So these probably were the previous values, and this also should work. I hope this decal doesn't make problems. So you see still the same result, everything works as expected. So in case that you don't want to use the FX player, but just taking into consideration the FX player has already a lot of features. I mean, you can look at some of them. This terrain feature, for example, is also very nice. There you can set up terrain filters and do the same things as before with instance events and audio clips. So this is a very specific one here. I mean, you can also look at the code and use it in your own code if you want to write your own kind of effects and not use this FX player. Yeah, actually, that's it for this tutorial. Just remember, if you really want to use it in your own code, you will need something like that. And this for the other foot. And this is how you rotate these things. And I mean, you can change that. There's one edge case where this is not going to work. For example, if the left foot sets this forward vector, if this one would be pointing upwards or downwards, we will be in trouble because this function here would not be, it wouldn't work because this vector and this vector would be too similar. It would just screw things up. So in this case, you would need to fix that in code. So for example, if that's the case, I can choose a different axis here. I mean, we can even try it if you want. So in here, but axis we are not allowed to use is the up, but we are allowed to use the right axis. So we can also say use the right axis. And we just do it for the left foot now, because otherwise we would need to configure this new. So you can change this in code as well if you should have this trouble. That's a really very specific edge case, and I did not give some member variables where you could define that's on me. But if I should ever do that, I would probably rewrite the script, because it has gotten very big already and it just grew too fast. So in this case, if this is the up vector, if the right vector is the up vector, the game object from before, we have to rotate it differently. So the up vector has to be pointing to the right vector now. So the up vector, this green one from our prefab or FX prefab, has to point now in the same direction as the right vector, the red one of our foot. So in this case, with this new orientation, we have to fix this again, how our decal has to be oriented, and just do it like that. And I can just not replace, let's do it differently. Let's rename it, create a new prefab, and set this up here. The wrong settings here. We have to reset this because I forgot to do that. And I hope that now it works. Yeah, it does work. So you see, you can configure it. I hope you understood this concept of parenting and finding the right orientations. I know it's complicated, but that's the only way. And yeah, I hope this still helps you out. And until next time.